What is going on at the city clerk's office in Sarasota? An investigation is now underway into whether the city clerk herself has created a toxic work environment. But as ABC 7's Taylor Torregano tells us, one former city commissioner is charging she tried to raise the issue years ago, but no one listened. Taylor?
Good evening, Alan. The first public accusations arose in 2016, but I'm told today by a former city commissioner that the complaints against Pamela Natalini began long before that job performance review 2 years ago. It's a similar song.
This has been going on and on and on.
Though allegations didn't come to light publicly until 2016, this former city commissioner says right after Pamela Natalini was promoted to city auditor and clerk in 2010, the complaints began.
That this was a abusive work environment, that the city auditor and clerk was very suspicious, that she was always checking on people who challenged her.
Chapman says those accusations were first detailed in a resignation letter from a former employee under Natalini in 2011.
I have to say, everybody in City Hall knows it, and they just don't want to deal with it.
On the contrary, Mayor Liz Alpert says she's never had any issues with the job Pam Natalini has done.
I think it's unfortunate. I think that the clerk does a really good job for the commission and interacting with the public.
But when it comes to the employees, Alpert says the complaints are alarming.
I take them very seriously because, you can't ignore that many people who say she's a terrible boss.
Most recently, 22 claims of a toxic work environment from anonymous employees under Natalini during her annual review early this year. Among them, quote, Pamela is a cruel, self-serving individual. She manages by intimidation. I've seen her bring employees to tears over simple matters. The final straw came in the form of a 5-page letter from a fired employee last month, detailing several occasions where Natalini was a, quote, horrible manager. It was then the City Commission decided that it was due time for something to be done. Monday night, commissioners heard a presentation from the Human Resources Director about a potential course of action.
As part of what we're being asked is whether or not the complaints that were raised, warrant particular either recommendation for disciplinary action or whether they can be discarded as folks that have separated from employment and now have complaints.
HR says it narrowed the options down to 3 third-party investigators well accredited to get to the bottom of this. 2 of them are attorneys from national law firms. Commissioner Hagan Brody recommended HR choose the least expensive of the 3 and preferred the local option, a Sarasota HR professional consultant.
All we need is somebody to interview the current employees and get a credible assessment on what's going on over there, because we've gotten these anonymous complaints and we have to address it.
The vice mayor suggested that HR would make the best educated decision of which of the 3 to hire, and the commission unanimously agreed.
You have the best judgment if there's a conflict, you understand what the scope of the work is, and I would feel comfortable with you as a professional making this decision.
HR says this investigation will include a review of any supporting documents and interviews with current and former employees under Natalini. But before it's even began, Natalini voiced her intent not to cooperate.
I just want to put on the record, Bob, I will not be interviewed regarding this process due to the way much of this has been handled and played in the media.
Though she hasn't said much more in her own defense, Martin Hyde calls himself a friend of Natalini and says she's not the monstrous woman those 22 complaints have made her out to be.
22 from nearly 700 people, and you've got to remember, if you ask the right question, you can get a complaint about almost anything. Most of them weren't directly from her department, and the fact is subordinates are always going to have, if it's anonymous, take the opportunity to take a whack at their boss.